and gentlemen, welcome to FanCastit. This is our Halloween episode number 3. FanCastit 3. Thank you all for joining us on our special episode. We have FanCastit Gaming and FanCastit Chill here. Me and Marcus are obviously hosting FanCastit Prime, which you are now watching. I'm Sean.
I'm Court.
I'm Marc.
I'm Cora. I'm Courtney.
I'm the other guy.
Bruh, come on. Today we are going over top 10 Halloween movies.
Yes!
These are our personal opinion though.
These are our personal opinion and they have to be Halloween themed. Therefore, horror movies do not count. Yes. Therefore, we had to dig into the bag of tricks to get these. Obviously, movies that will not be referenced are Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island and Charlie Brown and The Great Pumpkin. Yeah. Because we've already covered them in 2 other videos.
And because they're pretty much TV shows that have just been made into movies.
Yeah.
So passing the torch to our first presenter, Courtney, we're talking about Halloween Town.
Yeah. Okay. So if you don't know about Halloween Town, you're obviously not a 90s or 2000s kid. Basically, Halloween Town. Even if you were a 2000s kid, you probably don't remember it because it was too old. But basically Halloween Town is, it's these 3 siblings who have this crazy eccentric grandmother, and she comes by every once in a while, but their mother doesn't like her coming by, the grandmother. And one Halloween she does, and the kids aren't allowed to go outside for some unknown reason. And eventually they find out that that's because their grandmother and their mother are witches, and they go to this town called Halloween Town. And it's super awesome, very endearing and sweet. So that's my pick.
I will let my brothers talk about Halloween.
I'll do this one. I love these movies.
You both can cover it.
Okay, fine. So, Halloween, we got Mr. Spooky Boogeyman named Michael Myers.
Yes.
He is an icon. So Halloween was originally made by John Carpenter.
John Carpenter.
John Carpenter.
In 1976.
Even though certain people hate this movie, for whatever reason,
It's been remade again.
They're doing it, yeah, they're doing it
Once by Rob
2018
Zombie
one.
and then one by Wes Craven.
yeah, I'm talking. So we're talking about the original John Carpenter one, which is probably the best one.
Yes.
Out of all of them, because it had a surprisingly low budget, and it was still really good. Had an iconic character. Well, introduced an iconic character
With an iconic mask.
With an iconic mask. No one will forget that Captain Kirk whited out mask. Great movie, even though it was made in 1974, scared the bejesus out of everybody in 1974, and it is on this list.
And Halloween 2 was considered one of the better sequels.
Yes.
Better than the other ones, especially the ones that came after Halloween 2.
Yes.
Definitely one of the better horror sequels.
Yeah, I think after that, I think the next best one after Halloween 2 is Halloween H2O.
With nothing there, that movie was the shit.
That
Busta
movie,
Rhymes.
yeah,
And Busta Rhymes.
That movie was actually surprisingly good.
My take on Halloween, if I like slasher films, it would be one of the better ones. Although I do not like slasher films, so I'm about to tear this apart. It's not good.
Well, you gotta ruin everyone's fun, Sean.
It's a man in a mechanic suit with a giant mask and a giant butcher knife, and he gets shot, he gets stabbed, and he still comes back.
That's because
He
my boy
still
did
comes
cheese.
back. Moving on. Let's talk about this one. This one is like this one gets to me because I love Stephen King.
I was gonna say I love this because I love Stanley Kubrick. And Stanley Kubrick, the god of cinema right there. This movie, if you guys don't know what we're talking about, come on, Stanley Kubrick and Stephen King, they've only had one perfect baby together, and that is The Shining.
Basically what The Shining is in a nutshell is a kid with special powers that knows his dad is going to kill the family, and it eventually comes because his dad goes insane because of the isolation up in the middle of a hotel because he's a writer, this and that. Basically comes up to the family with an axe, which is the most iconic scene. Jack Nicholson pops through the door, here's Johnny, and we get kicking off from there.
Can we just talk about the fact that no other person, dead or alive, could have ever played that character other than Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
Listen, Jack Nicholson does well at playing crazy. He played the Joker.
The Joker, Frank Costello in The Departed, which is my favorite movie of all time.
He even played a nut job that was psychologically okay in his brain in Anger Management. And
and I was still scared of him. I'm thinking I'm so pretty in the car with Adam Sandler. That shit was terrifying.
Yeah.
Jack Nicholson has this gravitas that you just can't own.
It's the voice.
It
really is the voice.
And his eyebrows, it's they fly right into his forehead.
Oh my god.
I want to say that Jack Nicholson was wearing no makeup in this movie. Well, obviously he was, but it looked like he was not, and that he'd stayed up for hours just to get this perfect look in.
Well, that's what they did, though,
Well, that's just shooting with Stanley.
He would make them retake the scene for like 100 times just to break them past the point of insanity to get that craziness.
Right.
Sorry, I've watched so many video essays where this, The Shining is my.
The Shining is a great novel and a great movie.
Yes.
What we do in the shadows. Who wants to cover?
Okay. Recently watched this movie like a couple of months ago, and it was perfect. Taika Waititi, Jeremy Clements, y'all are amazing. Like, it's the horror movie for the people who got that weird ass sense of humor. It's a mockumentary filmed about vampire roommates. So you go into this movie with low expectations, just knowing that it's gonna be trash, and you accept that up front, and you just have a good time.
Facts.
Yeah. I think my one of my favorite scenes is when I can't remember the character's name, but I think it's Vladislav who ends up transforming into the cat, but he can't get the face right, so it's just this Vladislav's face just chilling out on this black cat, and I'm sitting there pissing myself. Like, it's just so freaking funny.
What I was originally gonna do was talk about this childhood series of mine that's been in my life for years. The Crypt Keeper has been on cartoon TV, TV as a live action thing, and game show as a live action thing. He also had a series on TV as an actual Tales of the Crypt show, which bounced into a movie with Jada Pinkett Smith and a bunch of gore and a bunch of blood. I'm not going to talk about that though, because I've stumbled onto something genius and creative in my mind, which trumps anything talked about today.
Okay.
I'm talking about Sleepy Hollow. This movie had a convoluted story. It had twists and turns that you did not expect. It had the obviously great Headless Horseman. There was no pumpkin, but that's besides the point. It was still terrifying to the bone. You did not expect half the jump scares that came. Some of these scenes were gruesome, as in people's heads getting cut off every 10 seconds.
Yes.
Or the fact that when you're watching Ichabod Crane inside a post-mortem state, and then just looking at him pick at somebody's remains with a scalpel and see blood spurt out. It's gross. It's great, and it's a great story.
Corpse Bride. Courtney, you're up.
Hey! Okay, Johnny Depp movie, Tim Burton movie. Unfortunately, I like both of those. So, don't at me though. But again, Corpse Bride, if you haven't seen it, same as with Halloween Town, but Corpse Bride you should have seen. Corpse Bride is about a man who wanders into a forest, engaged to some stranger that he, is marrying because of money. So basically he wanders into this forest and finds a corpse. Well, he doesn't actually find the corpse. He is practicing his vows, and he puts a ring on a stick, which then turns into a corpse hand, or a skeleton hand I should say. And this crazy corpse bride, voiced by Helena Bonham Carter, follows him around and thinks that she's in love with him. And thinks that he's in love with her because he proposed, but he thought she was just a stick. So that's pretty much the premise of the movie. It's actually sad in the end, and it's got nice singing, kind of. Kind of. There's this one song I love, Tears to Shed. But yeah, if you haven't seen Corpse Bride, it's pretty iconic in the makeup world, I guess, because a lot of people do Emily, who's the Corpse Bride, her makeup. And that's what I know about the world, is makeup. So anyway, on to the next person.
So we're gonna bring it around to another animation type series and or another animation movie, and I'm gonna talk about Coraline. So this is a childhood favorite of mine. Probably watched it about 12 Neil Gaiman originally written. It's this little girl moves into this basically secluded neighborhood. It's always dreary outside. Actually, fun fact, YB, who's in the movie, was not in the books. Actually kind of liked it better without YB. Don't get me wrong, I liked YB. But, anyways. So she's bored out of her tree. One day she's exploring the house, discovers an old door, leads to a secret passage with an alternate universe where she's got this other mother. And this other mother is fun, pays attention to her and loves her, plays games with her, as well as her other father, which is very much in stark contrast to her own parents, who are work at home, injured workaholics. They just don't have time for her. And so she tries to kind of escape a little bit, you know, have fun. Like, what else is a little girl that age gonna do, right? But then it turns out there's something very sinister about them. They actually want to sew buttons onto her eyes and steal her soul, particularly the other mother. And I won't give the rest of it away, but it's creepy and it's artsy and it's fun and adventure and just everything that Neil Gaiman is fantastic at. And
love Neil Gaiman for everything, but particularly for Sandman.
Yes.
I would say that this sounds like a Tim Burton movie that got away.
Yeah.
Like what?
Like they wrote the script specifically for him.
This was actually a pretty good movie.
Cool.
I was just gonna say, the other thing, my only critique about this movie is there's this one scene in the book, although I wish they'd included it, but I understand for keeping the ratings as for children that they didn't do. The other father in this book, he's also under control of the other mother, who's basically the beldam we end up knowing her as. He ends up becoming super deformed, like his face starts melting, he becomes doughy, and he's trying to hold back against the nature, this possession that the other mother's enforcing on him, but he can't keep track of himself, like he can't control himself anymore, and you see him like chasing Coraline up the stairs in the book while he's like melting and just trying to say like, I don't want to do this, but yeah. It was just a scene that was so terrifying that I wish could have been in the movies, but I respect that decision, and probably a lot of children and mothers who didn't want to be up with their children at 9 a.m. or
People
7
that were
a.m.
just stoned out of their faces. They
Yeah,
were too
just
hard
did
on
not
that
want to see, so.
They would have a lot of lawsuits. All right, moving on, we have Brendan Fraser's version of the Mummy, or is it your version of
That is
the
my
Mummy?
version. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me stretch this out. Old movie time. Here we go. So,
Old timey filter.
old timey filter.
We're
All
all
right.
black and white now.
So for the 7th spot, I had to give it to the granddaddy of movies. I'm actually giving this to the holy trinity of Universal Studios, and that is The Mummy, Frankenstein, and Dracula. All right? These are really fun watches for anybody who wants to know anything about film history. Old monster-style movies were like the bread and butter of Universal Studios. They got some really cool actors, and holy Jesus, for the 1940s and late 30s and early 40s, I guess, the makeup that went into these characters was so good. I mean, like, freakishly good. These are obviously, you go back and watch them now, and they seem kind of corny and whatever, but these used to scare the skin out of people who are watching these in the theater, and that really just goes to show how much work was put into a movie without any kind of CGI effects, without any kind of computer generation, and even without any real, without any kind of editing outside of the good old-fashioned chop 'em up editing style. A lot of these movies really relied on the art of telling a good story to scare a person instead of just gosh, 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 you know, blood, 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 you know, jump effects, jump scares and stuff. They really, you were creeped out by the character Dracula instead of being scared of what he could do to you. So, if you ever get a chance, if you are a fan of film in any way, all 3 of those movies are a must-watch. And yeah, there you go.
Let's talk about A Nightmare on Elm Street.
I'll take this one. Alright,
Okay.
so A Nightmare on Elm Street follows the premise of a person who was burned after not doing very nice things to children. He is a child killer and he gets burned for it. So he comes back, but not in physical form, but more a dream form where he appears in people's dreams and he kills them and like kills like all the victims from before. And yeah, it's very scary. Freddy Krueger, classic weapon. I'm pretty sure he has the most memorable weapon of all time. The knife club. No? Yeah, so very scary, the first one, then becomes more comedic after the second one, I believe. Becomes very, very dumb. And then you got the remade versions. Some kills were good in that one, yeah.
I will say that for its time, this was terrifying because being killed in your dreams is not something people think of, or dying in your sleep.
Yeah.
So when it came out in its time, this was one of the scariest movies that could have come out.
It was the one who made people fear going to sleep. Because they're like, oh no, Freddy Krueger's going to come in my dream and kill you. It was also the one who had the most consistent actor in a horror movie. So, Robert Englund, first that was his name, he spanned in all of the movies except for the remake version. I do like the remake version of Freddy Krueger. Because he's very scary. He's very scary. I think the actor did a really good job doing a remake of him. That's just my opinion, though. I also like the remake version, so.
Yeah, wasn't the guy who they chose as Freddy Krueger the same dude from Watchmen?
Yes,
who played
he's Rorschach.
Yeah.
He also played Scarecrow in Injustice 2 game.
Nice.
So yeah, scary stuff he's doing there.
Okay,
right.
So recently, as you've all seen trailers, Pet Sematary, another Stephen King universe movie, is coming out. If you do not know about Pet Sematary, a man and his family move into a new house.
Yes, they do.
His cat dies. He buries it in the cemetery. It comes back to life. Ooh.
Like practical magic.
Oh, it sounds like Goosebumps when you first started, but
Next, his kid dies because he leaves his kid unattended. It goes out into the middle of the road and gets flattened by a truck. Now, after that, he's like, you know what? Cat came back to life. Why not the kid? Makes sense, right? So let's put it and bury it in this cemetery at the back, which is actually an Indian burial ground. So that makes things 10 times better. So what happens is the kid comes back to life, but the kid doesn't come back all there, because the kid comes back as an evil entity. Basically acting like a baby from the get-go. The kid starts killing people within the neighborhood, starting with the neighbor and that famous scalpel scene where he's just holding it on the ground after cutting his head. And yeah, I'd really like to see the new version and what they're going to do with it, because there are 2 kids in this version, not one, and the entire family, and they're also using the guy that was in
Winchester?
Yes, the Winchester, there you go. Yes, so he was in that movie. I can't remember the main character's name.
Does anybody know who's directing the new one?
No.
Okay.
I do not. I have to review that. But yeah, Pet Sematary, really old movie, really, really creepy. It's like, I imagine like Child's Play, but this is an actual child, not a man and a doll. And it being like this innocent child comes back to life in this act of like depression and grief, only to go around and kill everybody, and him having to kill his son in the end.
Yeah.
Which sucks. But at the same time, poetic.
Oh God.
I have a question. Did he come back out of the cemetery flattened as well? So
No.
was he just like a walking pile
No.
of poop? No.
They come back reformed. The cat was also evil, which they didn't know.
Done.
actually,
Right.
come to think of it, that reminds me. There was a new movie that was made, The Lazarus Project, I think it was. A very
with,
similar premise to that.
Yes, with Olivia Wilde and Childish Gambino and...
Yes,
Yeah.
Was that supposed to be like based off of Pet Sematary? Because they had a very similar premise with the dog
I mean,
dying.
it's just
coming back to
a
life,
reanimation.
or-
They did. It was a good premise to it. Like, they brought the girl back to life. She came back with something in her and ended up killing everybody.
It was a
Very
good,
Pet Sematary.
yeah, I was gonna say it was good up until like the last 20 minutes, and then just ended stupid and there's so many.
As horror movies tend to be.
Lazarus Project.
Yeah.
All right, I am so glad that nobody referenced Child's Play on this list, because seriously,
No, hell no.
buff that movie.
No.
Did he? Wait, he just mentioned it though.
As like a legitimate thing.
All right, well, guys, that is our list. Thank you very much for tuning in to FanCastit Scream.
There are other horror movies and Halloween movies that weren't listed, in these episodes, obviously. So if you know of any that are better than the ones we mentioned, leave it in the comments and we'll cover it next year. Again, this was great having everybody together in one podcast. Woo! Except music.
Except for FanCastit music.
We'll get to them later.
We'll have them sing us a segment.